Hi, I'm reviewing an article called Reports Show Students Attending K-12 Inc. Cyber Schools Fall Behind. And the article is about a corporation, a company called K-12 Inc. that offers virtual schooling to students online, and it is apparently not doing well. The students' reading and math scores are further behind than students who go to traditional schools, or as the article refers to them, as brick and mortar schools. It says that the students are less likely to stay in the school for an extended period of time, and they're less likely to graduate even or to succeed. The article also says that there is less money spent on special education at the K-12 Inc. schools, and that they're spending not much money on instructors, despite having lower overhead costs. So they don't have transportation issues, they don't have food issues, they don't have a lot of issues that traditional schools have, but they are not spending a lot of money on instructors and special education, and therefore, in combination with lower reading and math scores, this article is encouraging that K-12 Inc. be, I don't know, not used at all, I think. This is where it gets a little blurred. I feel like the article is trying to say that all virtual schools are bad, and even though it refers to K-12 Inc. repeatedly throughout the article, there is a reference on probably the fifth or sixth paragraph down talking about a comparison of Pennsylvania virtual schools to brick and mortar schools and how the virtual schools fail in comparison to the brick and mortar schools. And after having taken a class in statistics this past summer, I have to wonder, it doesn't answer a lot of questions. What kind of community the kids come from that go to these brick and mortar schools? Are they, is it a transitional community? Is it a community with very stable homes? Is it single family dwellings that surround the school? Because that will lead to kids staying in schools longer, more typically, than transitional housing that feeds into schools like apartments or rentals. It doesn't answer whether the demographics between the virtual schools, K-12 Inc., and the Pennsylvania traditional schools, if the demographics are even the same. Are we talking, are these Title, schools that are receiving federal funding for taking care of the students? Are these schools that have very wealthy families? Because that tends to lead to some kids doing better. I'm not saying wealthy families are better, but I mean, they tend to have at least not have to worry about where they're going to sleep that night or if they're going to have food. I feel like the information comparing virtual schools to traditional schools, I can't tell that this study was done really well, or at least in this article, they did not reveal the details of how closely the demographics are. Is this an apples to apples comparison? And are you just comparing it to K-12 Inc., or are you talking about all virtual schools? When I look at the website for K-12 Inc., it's obviously a commercial site. It's out to make money. So yes, most likely they're going to try and employ as few of instructors as possible and maximize their students because they're out to make money. There's no mention on the website of following standards or how important the learning is. It's more about their business model. Well, that's a clue right there that K-12 is not probably a great program. There should be some questions raised about it, but I don't think that standard can be applied with a broad stroke to all virtual schools. I think you have to look at what communities you're comparing the traditional schools, what communities they exist in, to the virtual schools, who's funding the virtual schools. Are they a .edu? Are they a .com? what are they? So I feel like this article left me with a lot of questions, and after taking a class and talking about demographics and statistics, I just really wonder how well this evaluation was done. And I would have felt more comfortable if they had talked just about K-12 Inc., but they tiptoed into the realm of saying all virtual schools, or they insinuated at it, and I feel like that causes even more question about the article. I can appreciate what they're trying to point out, and I don't know how you do special ed in a virtual school, and special ed is very expensive. So I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't doing that. There are schools who can't offer special ed, like the school I work at is a private school. We do not have a budget for special ed. We have some assistance for students, but it's extremely expensive. And so if your child requires special education, it may be that your choices are more limited. That's not what we would want in a world, but when it costs so much to have a special education program, maybe you need to go where there's public funding, and maybe you need to go to a public school where you can get the help your child most needs, and not a virtual school that's not equipped to do that, or necessarily a private school, depending on the finances of the school. So I feel like I learned from this article to doubt K-12 Inc., especially since it's a .com. It's obviously a commercial site, and I checked the site out for myself, and it's out to just make money. So yeah, I'm not surprised that it's not doing well. But I really question the study they're referring to about comparing traditional schools to K-12, because we're not given any information on how that study was done. So I just don't know how viable that study was. So that's how I feel about that.